Okay, so I want to start a going down the rabbit hole series. So I want to start with the story. Even as a teenager, I always grew up with a lot of love, support, laughter, and I was always a very bubbly, happy go lucky type of person. So I never knew that whole philosophy of what it was to be depressed or sad. I actually was that person that would lift everyone's spirits. I was that friend that people would go to when they were feeling down. And obviously, as I grew up, then I realized why. Because, I was an empath and I had those abilities to make people feel comforted. Well, I felt like I always was tapped into all that I am, but of course we evolve as we get older. And one day I met an earth angel who was a Native American, and we had a very deep conversation. And he shared with me a lot of the things, a lot of wisdom and knowledge about things, how things are in the world. And some things I agreed with, some things I just, found it hard to believe because, we don't know everything. We just know we can only speak of our personal experiences in life, right? So, but I will tell you, he was very spiritually connected. Every time I would go see him in his dwelling, which was a very sacred place for him, not a lot of people could enter. And anytime I would go visit him, I had to make sure that I was, like, he always would ask me questions, where did I go before? I had to make sure I was pretty clear, like my aura, my chi. I didn't bring any attachments, you know what I mean? So I always had to have some sort of cleansing before I even entered his sacred place. But anyways, we had a conversation about that pretty much made me realize all the things that I thought I was and all of the things that I connected with. And for example, the colors red and black are my favorite colors. And I'm very connected to Egyptian things, and so we were having these conversations about origins and creation and ancients and all this stuff. And he's brought up a lot of the I guess the symbolism to a lot of the things that I liked and connected to were Illuminati things, or things that were used in witchcraft, or things that, stuff like this, all this type of stigma stuff. And so obviously it forced me to think about, wow, like how can all these things that I know to be a part of who I am, a part of all that, be evil, be bad? It really made me rack my brain. So I went down the rabbit hole of doing some research, like, okay, and then I did come to find that a lot of the symbolism that he was referencing, was used by Illuminati and high societies and all these things. And I'm like, well, does that make me a bad person? Does that make me an evil person for connecting to these things, for being, these are the things that I know that I am. And I was still going through my spiritual journey. So at the time that I accepted that maybe everything that I know is wrong, is backwards, and it was very hard for me to come to terms with it, because I'm like, this is who I am. Like, I am a spiritual being. I connect with source. I have met Jesus. I do know God, all these things, right? So how can this be bad? How can, where I know I'm connected to, be evil? It just did not click to me. It did not make sense. And it gave me, for the first time ever in my life, a sense of depression. And for the first time ever, and this was in my late 20s, I felt depression, and what it was to feel depressed, because when your belief system is crushed, okay, broken, stripped from you, and people make things make sense to where you almost can't argue with it, it forces you to think, like, everything that I know, is it right? Is it wrong? Well, have I been taught what's good, what's evil? So you start questioning everything. And it got me to get really, really sad, really depressed, because I'm like, I only know these things that I've experienced in life. I've experienced seeing ghosts. I've experienced seeing entities. I've experienced seeing demons. I've experienced seeing angels. I've experienced seeing aliens. I've experienced, I've met my guides, my guardians. I know I come from ancient descent. All these things that were my personal experiences, it really made me, it forced me to look inward and say, what is it? Like, what's good? What's evil? And so I first started to get depressed about it. And I was in a funk for a little while because I just couldn't believe it. And then obviously it unlocked some things to where every time I looked at a TV show or I listened to a certain song, everything started clicking. I would start now seeing connections to some of the things that he was referencing, that he talked about. And, you know, I would now see the demonic hidden agenda behind this or that. I would, you know, and I just was like, everything just was like illuminated. So then, you know, it makes you want to change behaviors, change some things. And then at one point, and this, you know, I got real low because I'm like, once your belief system is stripped, I'm telling you, once it's stripped, you kind of like, where do I go from here? I couldn't turn to my family because they believe a lot of those things, and they believe, well, we grew up that way, very spiritual household. They wouldn't understand. My parents very religious. I could not argue anything that they believed at all. So you get to the point where you're so low, you start questioning like, well, if this is the way it is, and I really have no control in my life, and everything is by design, and I'm just a puppet, then I want to go home. I want to go home to my galactic universe, other realm, other dimension, wherever it is I belong. I don't want to be here. And so, and then it makes you think of that, the people that take it that far. Is it because, you know, and some people go that route because there's mental illness, and I will talk about that in another chapter. But is it because these individuals realized it was all a game? Life is all controlled, and we have to play this game. We have a task to fulfill, and they just didn't want to play anymore. Have you ever thought about that? That maybe they just knew something and they're like, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. And that is the only way that they felt like they were in control. But here's the catch-22 to that. You're never in control. Because then, as my spiritual journey developed, I realized if you do something like that and you try to cheat your way out of this game, it's Ready Player One. You get put back in. So it's pointless, really. And if you don't get put back in, then you are what they call in biblical terms in purgatory. Really, it's interdimensional. Really just stuck in between planes, what I would call a lost soul. So when you go down the rabbit hole and you start questioning all these things, and some, you know, people that have wisdom and knowledge and experience tell you things that you're like, man, this just, I can't argue this. This makes sense. So I developed into the point of, no, I can't accept this. No. I know I'm a good person. I know everything I do comes from source. I know everything I do comes from love. And these things cannot be bad. Then you get angry. And when you start getting angry with life, that's when I feel that you're woke. That's when I feel everything unlocks for you. Because now that you're angry, you want answers. You go start looking for answers in all the right places. And the universe sits back and says, we've been waiting for you. So, my child, what would you like to know? And that's what happened to me. My spiritual awakening happened when I had a deep conversation with someone who made me question a lot of things that I thought that I had beliefs in, or that I thought that I knew were good. They made me question was not good. And I came to realize, what if the trick all along, and that, man, they are so good, and man, this is some mastermind stuff. When you take the word live, L-I-V-E, and you read it backwards, it spells evil. And so that makes me think of the same concept. If you're not living, or things that prevent you from living are evil based. So then therefore, anything that's made you question that good is bad and bad is evil, that switch, you're onto something. So then I realized these damn, whatever you want to call them, Illuminati, elites, whatever, interdimensional beings, They took something that they knew was powerful, all the power that's within us, all the abilities, all the things we could do, commanding the universe, plants for medicine, all of that. And they made it, flipped it to make us believe it's evil if we tap into that, utilize those things or believe that, because that's the only way they can control you, through fear. And I want you to think about that. And then I come to think of, okay, this is how it is.